Move away from that dark space. Doesn't know your soul. Just wants to consume it whole. Fraught in the fine lines, fray at the edges of your broken house, burned down by the wolves. So a couple nights ago, I performed at my favorite open mic in the Twin Cities, and I wanted to do something unorthodox, where I would share some of my story and then play my new song. And I think the song actually goes pretty well with this. If you don't, for those of you that don't know, the Twin Cities is what we call it here. Outsiders will say Minneapolis, and then there's the sister city, St. Paul. And there's been obviously these really contentious problems coming up lately. New crazy events. It started with the fraud investigation and just this unbelievably huge scandal that I would say is certainly shocking, but for me, it's not surprising. And you'll see why when you hear my story. And then, of course, they sent in ICE agents, and then there's agitators fighting against them, and it's escalating, and it's getting more dangerous, and on and on and on. And what I wanted to do is actually on a theme of something I've wanted to do for a while. I've done this occasionally, and I want to do it more. And that is that I think more of us should do storytelling. That we should pick stories from our lives, something that's personal, that's unique. And there's a lot of freedom in what stories you choose. It could be funny, you could play it safe, or you could go really personal, or it could be very serious, or it could get into contentious, risky topics, and you could be the person to break the ice and potentially even call out an elephant in the room. And this is what I had in mind when doing this. And the thing with open mics that's interesting is that you get kind of anybody and everybody in the audience. And I've been going for like 8 years, and there's been times where I'm away for a little while, and then I come back, and there's regulars that go around and perform at all the local open mics in the cities, and then a lot of us, this particular one is our favorite. And that was about half the audience, and then, if you include the host that's been doing this one for years, we all know each other and have for a long time. We're not all very close friends, but we see each other in this like community staple frequently, monthly or weekly, and I've had a couple of close friends that I've met here. And just to set the scene, the regulars, so they're about half the audience. There's probably about 20 people total, and under normal circumstances, what I wanted to do would already be a total leap into the unknown, because I really don't know what I'm going to get, and I don't know what each person's going to perceive and understand and get out of or think about my story. It really is truly the unknown. But then on top of that, whenever new political strife and these kind of protest events and like destructive things happen, whenever the dust is kicked up again, there's more of the kind of left-wing activist and agitator types will come out of the woodwork, and that's all they'll be talking about. And, so obviously from their perspective, all the things that they believe and agree on. And then people that maybe wouldn't otherwise talk about something political might chime in a little bit here and there. And so that kind of takes over. So I signed up and put myself in the 6th slot, so I was number 6 to perform. And I just wanted to let people settle in before it kind of gets to me. And I knew that what I was going to do was really intense, that there was like this spiritual energy that would go out into the ether, and I was mindful of the ways that the audience could experience that. And I wanted there to be a big enough audience to actually match that energy. And the other thing, though, is that every single person that went up before me made at least some reference to current events and clearly signified that they were essentially on the left. And this kind of varied. Some people were making jokes. There was a lot of references to ICE agents, they suck, or kick them out of our city. and all kinds of things going on related to this, and it kept escalating. Every person that went on stage, it was building upon itself, and then I started to feel like really the tension was growing, and my husband and I were sitting in the audience, and knowing that I was going to go do this, he knew what I was going to do. I told the host that I was going to do something that takes a lot of bravery, and so he knew something was coming. And my husband was starting to get really angry. And a little bit later into the performance, says, one person goes on stage, and you could do comedy, but you can also just kind of chat with the audience about current events or whatever you want to talk about. And this very open-ended at open mics. So this person was sort of doing that, and they started saying, "There's a lot of white people in this audience. We all have white privilege, and we should do something about that." And they're making references to ICE, and hey, we're protesting, and we're doing this and that thing. And someone in the audience called out, "If an ICE agent enters your house, you can shoot them." So now the tension is extremely high, and there was one more performer after that was before me, and they played some music and made references as well, and they played a song that was a historical song about when the Nazis arrived, and so it just kept building, and it was really intense, and I was thinking to myself, like, am I really going to do this? And then I would whisper to my husband, because I could tell that he was having a hard time being here this long, trying to get through it. And I was whispering to him, "Do you want to leave?" And he said, "We're going to stay." And then I said, "Then I need your support on this. Please put your faith in me and pray to God for me." And then it was my turn. And I did this. So I'm going to do something unorthodox tonight and share a bit of my story and then play my new song. What I'm about to do is probably the scariest thing I've ever done on a stage, and it requires discernment. I can use my own discernment, and I trust that you can use your discernment. That nobody in this room is my enemy, because I put my faith in you. When I was a teenager, I escaped a horrible home situation. I was basically on house arrest. My world was very small. I didn't have very many experiences of any kind with the outside world. And what I experienced was destructive, barbaric, bizarre, and insane. When I escaped, I got medical care that I fought for alone as a minor. And then I got accepted into a youth housing program called Booth Brown House. This was a miracle. I suddenly went from the boy in the bubble overnight to the whole world was at my fingertips. What I discovered in the Twin Cities was a sense of magic and wonder. I could hop on a bus or a train or bike and go explore so many different places, so many beautiful places. It was truly the unknown, so full of potential. My friends and I at Booth Brown House uplifted each other. We might have been crabs in a bucket, but it was our fucking bucket, and 2 by 2, we would build our ladder out. We were the odd ones, rough around the edges, the people who fell through the cracks from our absurd, destructive childhood. And together we found community. In the last 15 years, a lot of things have changed. I had a vision of something beautiful we call empowerment. I worked in youth crisis intervention, volunteered in a variety of community groups, and met a ton of different kinds of people. Everyone has their sense of normal in real life, in their little piece of the world. Those daily pieces build their worldview. In 2019, I got a job in the youth network that saved my life 7 years earlier. I also got a job at an adult housing program. There we served residents that had been chronically homeless, had severe persistent mental illness, and dealt with very serious addiction. I know what it looks like when someone is addicted to meth and heroin at the same time. In both places, I discovered something incomprehensibly dark. Corruption, incompetence, abuse of the most vulnerable, and deception is what I saw. I showed up with a strong understanding of human empowerment, literally based on self-determination theory, and as an economic and spiritual bedrock. And I was alone. Most people didn't even know the basics. They didn't understand what human beings need to thrive and overcome suffering and hardship. Not economically, not socially, not spiritually. And on top of all that, there was a dark shadow looming over us, growing larger, multiple threads in society, separate movements that were now converging on a shared theme under a shared ideology called social justice. Now there were oppressors and oppressed, and nobody in between. Because this ideology is consistently adopted by liberals and leftists, it became inseparable from intensely partisan, divisive politics. Every time I tried to do good work, I was targeted, lashed out at, punished, and threatened. There was no way I could fix these programs or rebuild alone. I became a whistleblower twice in 2020 against two of the largest nonprofits in the state and a multitude of others. You do not know how dark it is to be the only one. The last piece of the puzzle is that I was a trans man until I was 28 years old. Officially for 14 years if you start at the beginning of my transition. But technically, in a way, you could say my whole life. I perceived I was a boy and later a man. I didn't experience any hostility because I was trans, but I did experience countless instances of hostility and prejudice for being a white man. When I was in youth work, the network had created a caste system. I quickly realized that every person was now beholden to a role based on their race, gender, sexual orientation, trans status, and so on. If they did not play that role, they too would be attacked. Nobody was safe anymore. I detransitioned less than 3 years ago with not a damn clue what it's like to be a woman. I had never done that before. All of my friends have accepted and supported me at every phase of my life. You have to get to know people individually. And when you get a cue that they've experienced something on a polarizing topic or something that seems like a red flag or scares you, be brave. They might not hate you. They might not be extremists. They might not be bigots. After I was a whistleblower, I was left demoralized, traumatized. My weight dropped to 100 pounds. I had holes in my clothes, holes in my shoes, and just barely avoided homelessness for 4 years. I worked in the field of youth empowerment and homeless prevention and outreach, and that field left me almost dead on the streets. A big reason I actually recovered, that I now have a house, a future, a family, is because in April of 2024 I met my husband. He was generous and incredibly brave. I'd never dated men before. I had no idea what I was doing. He didn't really know exactly what it meant that I was a detrans woman. But he was open to me, and we got to know each other as people first. My husband is also a white man, and he's my hero. I've watched him come out of his shell and light up with joy, humor, playfulness, and strength. Because I have made a point to be kind, gentle, and encouraging. I have made a point to show him that I will not attack him the way I have been attacked. People need courage. We need truth. We need willingness to see the whole human being. Move away from that dark space. Doesn't know your soul. Just wants to consume it whole. Fraught in the fine lines, fray at the edges of your broken house, burned down by the wolves. Move away from that dark space. Doesn't know your soul. Just wants to consume it whole. Fraught in the fine lines, fray at the edges of your broken house, burned down by the wolves. They coerce you to howl at the moon, assimilate to death and destruction. It's a nihilist instruction while they gnaw on your bones. I wouldn't build a hell on this earth and call it a home. So take these waters of life and move to the light. So take these waters of life and move to the light. Find that which cannot be lost, stolen or broken. Siddhartha called it Buddha nature, while Jesus said, "Thy kingdom come, thy kingdom come." So remember who you once were. I know you know we were made for a higher goal. God lies in the silence and the devil's in the noise. So I'll speak truth to music, give my soul a voice, and say, move away from that dark space and reclaim your soul. Find that quiet buried under the noise. You were always whole. I know you're fraught in the fine lines, but you were made for more. So take these waters of life, put out the fires of hell. Be the miracle you wish to see, and then you will know. Be the miracle you wish to see, and then you will know. Oh, it's a wonder to be reborn.